I continue in 1 Timothy chapter number 3. 1 Timothy chapter number 3. We're dealing with the qualifications of the deacon. And I am in verse number 8. Likewise, must the deacons be grave, not double-tongued, not given to much wine, not greedy of filthy lucre. The deacons must be grave, and that is serious individuals. I would like to say it like this, individuals, men that are to be taken seriously. There are some folk in society that you just don't take seriously. There are other people in society that you take quite seriously. Secondly, not double-tongued, and I dealt with that and pointed out that the double-tongued would carry the idea of double-mindedness. James warns that a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. Thirdly, not given to much wine. Not given to much wine. The bishop, on the other hand, is stated to not given to wine. And it is my estimation that this area of not given to wine for the bishop and not given to much wine for the deacon, in that day, wine was used as a medication. There is an alcohol content in cough syrups today, and things that you take for the flu. There's an alcohol content. Sometimes people joke about the high alcohol content that's in NyQuil. You take a cup of that before you go to bed, it'll knock you out. Well, that's the alcohol content. And alcohol in that day was used as a medication. Sometimes if somebody was in excruciating pain, they would be given alcohol. They would be made to be intoxicated to try to find some relief from the pain they were in, or if a operation was going to have to be performed, or some bone set, a man that had a terminal illness. Solomon said, give strong drink to him that is to perish. A man that's at the end of his life, much like we would use morphine today. So I find this to be an area of medication. The bishop is not to be given to wine. One requirement of a faithful pastor is that he have reasonable health. And a pastor that doesn't have reasonable health is not going to be able to fulfill the duties of the bishopric that are his responsibility. And there are many things that a pastor is called upon to do. Sometimes a pastor is called out when there's death. It's called out at 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning. They're called out. They have to be strong enough and alert enough and well enough to get up at 2 in the morning and go to the hospital, or get up at 2 in the morning and meet the undertaker. Those things are of necessity. So I think the area of not given to wine would be not on medication. And there are some medicines that truly alter one's personality. And I think that there are preachers that have actually gotten into trouble and had problems that have come up in the church because their personality was altered, or their state of consciousness was altered because of the medication that they are on. Oxycodone, Oxycontin, the oxy drugs are a form of heroin. Now, you would vote your pastor out if you knew that your pastor was taking heroin, going to heroin dens. They have those in San Francisco, places where people go to take heroin, and it just knocks them out. But the oxycodone and Oxycontin is a mild form of heroin. We have some drugs that have the same effect that are given by prescription, that have the same effect upon people as smoking a marijuana cigarette. So you would, and rightly so, you'd vote your pastor out if you knew he smoked marijuana. But then he may be on these other medications that have the same effect. I think that if anybody needs to be healthy and needs to be clear-headed and clear-minded, it would be the pastor, the bishop of the local church. whenever we arrive at the area of the deacon, it's slightly different. Here it says not given to much wine. And again, I don't find the area of strong drink being condoned here, when the balance of Scripture would condemn the matter of strong drink, drinking wine. This would have to be the area of medication. The demands placed upon a deacon are not as strenuous as the demands that would be placed upon a bishop, placed upon a pastor in the local church. And I think because of that, there is some difference here. There is some a deference where the bishop is not to be given to wine. The deacon is stated not to be given to much wine. Then the passage goes on. One of the next qualification is not greedy of filthy lucre. And this is exactly the same requirement that is laid down for the pastor. The pastor is not to be greedy of filthy lucre. A man that is classified as being greedy is a man that has an inordinate desire or an inordinate affection for things. He has a desire that is above and beyond. It is outside the norm. There are people that live in our society that you and I would classify as being greedy. Noel Webster, in the 1828 Noel Webster Dictionary, says having a keen appetite for, or having a keen desire for. And one of the illustrations that Dr. Noel Webster gives is as in greedy of gain. I think that there are some men that have discovered that there could be a lot of money made in the area of the ministry. A lot of money could be made. Now, I'm not preaching a vow of poverty. And I think in the Western society and in Western civilization, it would be more convenient for you to not be poor. Wealth will not make you happy. But in our free economic society, every citizen who's willing to work hard has the opportunity to find out that wealth will not make you happy. But there are some people that live, and all they live for is money. I've discovered in the course of my life that some of the greediest people I have ever run into were also the poorest. And some of the people that their sole occupation of their mind, the sole occupation of their time was acquiring money. That's all they ever thought about. It's all they ever talked about was money. And yet I've discovered that some of those people that were consumed by money, or perhaps consumed by money they didn't have, were not wealthy, but were the poorest people among us. And yet they seem to be the most greedy. A pastor is not to be greedy of filthy lucre. They that preach the gospel shall live of the gospel. The church should provide a comfortable living for the minister, for the preacher. But there are some men that have discovered that they can just become wealthy. I mean, they can live the lives of the rich and famous. And they can do that in the ministry. They can do that on the back of the ministry. Well, now, I've been in business my adult life, and I consider myself bivocational. I consider myself to be a Christian businessman. And it takes a tremendous amount of thought and preparation and work and labor to run and to maintain a business, to make sure that all the bills are paid, that everything's where it needs to be when it's supposed to be there. And a preacher that is occupied with the area of making money is not going to be occupied with preparing his messages and studying the Bible and being ready to stand before the congregation of believers. So it is with the deacon. He is not to be greedy of filthy. And it's interesting that the scripture would refer to this lucre as filthy lucre. The idea of it being filthy simply means it's dirty, it's foul, it's unclean, it's nasty, it is polluted, or it has been defiled by sinful practices, and it is made to be morally impure. Paul warns they that would be rich. You run into a man or a woman and they say, I'm going to be rich. If it's the last thing I ever do, I'm going to be rich. Well, that might be the last thing you ever do. It may destroy you. It may take your life and destroy your testimony. The word lucre, we use that for money. And of course, that is one of the definitions. But lucre, we say that this is a lucrative investment, or this is a lucrative business. We get that word lucrative from the word lucre. It simply means it's profitable. There can be an increase of goods and an increase of money. So lucre would be any kind of profit, money, but also goods, stocks and bonds, houses and lands and things of that nature. But lucre is used in the Bible, in the biblical sense of the term, is used to indicate generally something that is ill-gotten, something that has been gained or earned or obtained illegally or immorally. And my time is gone on the Bright Spot Hour today, but I'll continue with this tomorrow by the grace of God.
Check out the website at thebrightspothour.com. Write Dr. Carver at Post Office Box 4.